Super Mario Bros. We've all heard of it. It's a classic platformer where Mario's goal is to get to the flagpole at the end of each level, jumping on a bunch of little enemies along the way. Mario is the hero, always focused on the goal, but have you ever wondered what it would be like to be one of the enemies? Just think, you're a Goomba, doing your best to guard your territory, and here comes Mario, jumping on your head without a second thought. Kinda rough, right? That got me thinking, what if you could play as Mario and the Goomba you usually stomp on? I decided to make this game where you're not just playing as Mario, you're switching between the hero and the Goomba, trying to outsmart your previous self. So the first things first for this project was the sprites. Normally for Mario games, each animation is a series of individual frames. They draw each frame, which is pretty hard work, especially when it comes to smooth looks. But for my purposes, I decided to go with a different approach. Instead of hand drawing each frame, I created some basic sprites and split them into parts, so I could animate them directly in Unity, with keyframes. It's not as polished as Nintendo's work and it looks a little rough, but it saves me a lot of time and gives it a unique look. Then, along with Mario's animations, I gave some animations to the Goomba, and with this set up, it gives me a good framework to start working on the actual gameplay. Now, I bet you've been wondering how this whole play against yourself system is going to work. It starts off like a regular Mario game when you're controlling Mario, jumping around, heading to the flagpole, with Goombas simply walking towards you. But here's the catch, every movement you make as Mario is recorded. Then, once you reach the flagpole at the end, the game restarts and now you're playing as the Goomba, trying to stop your previous Mario run. So then it just goes back and forth, where when you're Mario you try and reach the flagpole, and then when you're the Goomba you try and stop Mario. And this system really isn't too complicated. I set up code that records Mario's movement every frame, capturing his velocity and the direction he's facing. Then when you switch to the Goomba, it just replays that sequence, making it feel like you're going head to head with a real player. It's like a game of chess against yourself. Next up was some extra elements to make the game feel better, and I added this little arrow that shows the player you're controlling. I also gave it a color cycle effect that makes it feel more retro. Then I made this pop effect for when something happens, and I gave it a little animation for having it grow and shrink. I really tried to lean into the old retro Mario style. I also added text that shows what happened last and why it's the other player's turn. Here is when I decided to give the Goomba a helmet so that I wouldn't have to worry about making Mario jump on his head. I feel like that would have just made things more complicated. Then, at this point, the game worked how I wanted it to. Everything was going great. You could go back and forth playing as the different characters and it really worked, but it wasn't very fun. That's when I was brainstorming and I got the idea to add a block at a random position each round. It's such a simple idea and it adds so much to the game. Mario is able to wall jump off these blocks while the Goomba can't get high enough for him sometimes, and it makes it feel even better. It makes it so your last round isn't as predictable, and it makes it so every game you play will be unique. For the final cherry on top, I got some sounds, so I went to this 8-bit sound effect maker website and I got myself a jumping sound and a pop sound for when something happens. Then I went to this 8-bit song maker and I made this little simple beat to play in the background. And there's the basic loop of the game. It's simple, but it has a unique twist to it. I even started thinking about adding more characters, like a Koopa or Luigi, each with unique abilities. The Goomba, for example, has a really high jump, while Mario can wall jump, which really changes the strategy depending on who you're playing as. Then, finally, to wrap things up, I added a few menus and some UI elements to make it feel more polished as a game. This was a fun experiment and I'm definitely opening to adding more to it. But if you've got ideas for new characters, powers, or maybe even entirely new mechanics, let me know in the comments.